Diablo is our darker IP, and it is usually an opportunity for us to do something different than we normally do with our other titles. But to put a spin on it, you know, the Blizzard spin, just enough to make it feel unique is something that's always exciting for us.
It has begun.
Just like the game itself was reinvented a few times over and over, so were the cinematics. Back in 2008, we were working on what we thought was Leah at the time.
We started with the first intro, and we had a Leah that we animated all the way through. We got it done. And then when we started to release the teaser, it turned out we had some problems with Leah, and they needed to basically rebuild her because we had one shot at the end of the teaser where she needed to do a lot of very subtle stuff. So they remodeled her, and we hammered her out in like a week. So that was Leah number 2 at the end of the teaser.
We actually animated an entire different version of the church intro. And we not only did we remake Leah, but we remade that entire cinematic.
When I came onto the show, the idea of this comet Tyrael coming through was always there, right? But how were we telling it was the challenge, right? And trying to set up this relationship with Cain and Leah. In certain character moments, she puts this blanket on his back, and you know, we wanted to show that she's caring for him, yet she's really not listening, right? She's just trying to be herself, and that was really a challenge from an animation standpoint. Just to put the cloth on Cain's back was a struggle, right?
We'll generally render all those elements independently. We'll render Leah by herself. We'll have frames of Cain by himself, and we'll have frames of possibly the blanket by itself. And we'll have to, in our compositing software, we'll layer them appropriately and build a composite. Look at a shot and you count the elements. Look at the major assets that are in there, and then dust particles, and you've got atmosphere. Then you'll have a character, and any one character is probably made up of 15 to 20 layers sometimes. So it adds up pretty quick. Just depends on the shot.
Although it might not feel like a very big moment, it was a very big character moment, and you know, we're really trying to focus on the story. And so those types of things we rally behind. You know, even though it's very difficult from a production standpoint, I felt that it was very important to describe these characters. So it was something that we pushed forward.
None of this makes any sense to me.
It turns out that an attractive young female is one of the hardest things to do in CG.
The art direction for Leah, we want her to look very pretty, you know, almost like a doll-looking character.
She is one of the very first female characters that we're trying to achieve realism combined with our Blizzard art style.
We're chasing a realism that can make you believe she actually exists.
Having a softer look on the female character is a huge thing for our director.
We've had to throw pretty much the kitchen sink at her to get her to look good in all of our shots.
We finally found like a method that works pretty well is we place area cards around her to really just wrap the lives around her and give her a really dreamy kind of feel. And then it was something that director looked at it and he was like, wow, this is it.
The close-up shots of Leah are the shots that we were able to really push the bar, raise the look considerably, and get really soft lighting and really great-looking subsurface scattering and skin.
Getting the subsurface qualities, you know, to how the light bounces around underneath the skin, really controlling how big her pores are and where the colors of blood are under her skin and, you know, in the textures.
Her skin quality, I think, is really one of the best things we've ever done here. Not to mention her eyes.
The trick in her eyes is making sure that the reflections are there. It's all about the reflections on the eyes and getting the highlights to be just in the right place, make it look interesting no matter what angle you're shooting from or what the lighting scenario is.
In past, we've treated the eyes as sort of a singular component. This is very different. The eyes have 10 or more components to them, not to mention the textures associated with those to make them look that realistic. Even when we're looking at each other, you can tell your iris goes slightly in, the pupil comes slightly out from that, and without that kind of fine detail, even in 3D, you notice.
I think we put a lot of realism in her eyes. But I also enjoy some of the shots where we see her full body and we see the body mechanics and her facial reactions. Leah was very, very challenging for animation because her model looks realistic. We are always fighting with the uncanny valley.
Many people talk about the uncanny valley, where characters that are 3D sort of approach a sort of human-like quality, and instead of feeling like you're attached to that character, you start to feel uncomfortable with that character.
You know, you're used to seeing humans every day, right? So when you go to see a CG human that's close but not quite right, and there's something wrong, it just pulls you out of what you're looking at.
We don't necessarily want to hit reality exactly. We want to film some reference, but abstract reality and come up with a performance that engages the audience, but doesn't necessarily try to match exact film. Because if we wanted to get perfect reality, we should have just made a short film, probably.
I think that Blizzard has started to crawl out the other side of that uncanny valley, where you have a lovable and great persona in Leah that doesn't really bother you from a CG perspective. Her emotions are on her face. She travels through the cinematic and you know exactly what she's feeling, what she's seeing through her eyes. And you don't feel uncomfortable with her. Her character really seems to stand out. You feel attached to her.
Tyrael, the ancient law of the high heavens strictly forbids us from interfering with the mortal world. Yet you have done so, brazenly.
All I am guilty of, Imperius, is bringing justice, while you hide, cowering behind your throne.
Silence!
Just the wings alone on the angels was incredibly challenging. We wanted to create something that no one had seen before, that was hypnotic to look at, that complemented the angels, right? That kind of delivered on that base expectation, you know, prettier than what we had seen before. But when you start thinking about that and what people imagine heaven to be, it's like, it's difficult to deliver on those.
We have a concept team in cinematics that creates all the concepts related to the cinematic. These guys will do character design, environment design, effect design, color scripting, just touch upon everything that is design work within cinematics.
When we were working on wing development, the first wings that we started were Imperius. We had several examples from the director and art director as to what the wings should look like.
He wanted something that people never seen before. It's kind of like the sun flare. It's very aggressive look.
When you think of an archangel and you think about him smiting the wicked, it would probably be the most scary thing to behold, you know, beautiful and scary at the same time. We talked a lot about different colors. In the end, I really pushed hard for just this golden god.
He obviously doesn't have a face, so we can't identify with him emotionally from his facial expressions, but his wings are his emotional expression.
It's like a dog's ears. When he's mad, you know, things kind of get brighter, and when they're alert, you know, they go up.
When we finally settled on a concept, we were able to turn that into a 3D element that really sort of sung as it pushes energy from the center of Imperius out to the tips of his wings.
Imperius thankfully had some sort of shape already drawn into the wings. They kind of look like eagle wings, so we came up with an idea to model the rig after a real wing.
Because it looked like a bird wing, we decided to put a bird structure inside the wings. And we could compress and extend the wing like a bird would. And at the same time, if we decided we wanted to make each independent strip break apart from the bird wing, we could do that too. So we needed a wing with an incredible amount of flexibility. So his wings had a lot more research and development than Tyrael's wings did.
Tyrael's wings is relatively easier because just the nature of the design is not nearly as aggressive. It's a very soft, flowy, peaceful looking wing.
His wings are still essentially a bunch of octopus tentacles, but the difference is we got a little bit more complex with the movement. We drove these procedural sine waves down the wings, radial manner from his back.
It's really hard to animate something that's organic, that's seemingly dynamic, so his are always doing this kind of waving motion. And so we have this controller that basically just puts his wave into it, and then the animators can just kind of put in how much they want.
During parts where Tyrael is calm, we try to keep an even sine wave type of shape going through it. Whenever the things are getting heated up, we try to increase that sine wave and try to make these patterns a little bit more chaotic.
Another layer on top of that is we simulate it with a cloth solver to give it this wavy, lagging feeling. And then once that's done, it goes to effects, and then they put on all the other sparkly stuff and smoke that comes off of it.
Tyrael's wings for the effects department are another big challenge. We've added onto them from the D1 and D2 area. His wings have extended. They've become more like appendages. We also wanted them to have life of their own. And so we've added a whole series of small but subtle effects on top of the wings. Near the tips of the wings, there's actually 5 passes just on the very tips of the wings in order to get them to feel like they're flowing through the environment, almost like a wind blowing on them. And so we needed to spend a long time making sure that there was lots of detail and pushing it into that perspective that we needed.
Heaven is gold and a lot of white and stone. And I mean, it looks like Liberace's palace, right? You know, we really had to be careful with some of this stuff. We wanted people to understand that it's heaven and deliver on some of those expectations, but we also wanted to put our spin on it. And those colors and those palettes, it's just really difficult to work with.
With gold or any metal, you have 2 techniques, you have 2 ways of making it look nice. It's basically all about what it's reflecting.
Imperius, for example, is full of metal, very reflective.
Tons of revision trying to get the correct gold shader for him. It started as a very copper, warm color kind of gold, and it transited into a uber gold, what the director called it. Nick wanted this kind of brush metal look, so we kind of digged into the shader and tried to achieve something like that. So the final version is slightly more desaturated, but it's still very rich in the gold kind of essence.
And also, of course, I have to say, about the wings of Imperius. It's a huge light source, which we cannot really, bring into a 3D software or render with that effects together.
How do we get the reflection of his wing to come through on the armor?
It's very expensive to actually calculate the proper reflections of all of those pieces next to each other.
The only thing we could do is kind of create cards and just kind of fake it.
Rather than reflecting all of the different elements, we'll simply texture map it onto a flat plane and then just reflect that flat plane. That makes it go a lot faster. It's a lot cheaper that way.
Like I said, I really felt that just having this golden god present in this space helped see him as the beautiful side, but his actions and what he does are just completely scary. And so he's frustrated at Tyrael, he's frustrated at the council, and in some ways that frustration starts to play out on his own actions. This is how Leah uses his vanity against him, calls him out, picks a fight with him, and basically just wipes the floor with him. To balance that and get the characters to work, right, and really be able to see what's going on with the wings was just this amazing challenge.
The destruction shot at the end of Heaven's Gate is the most complicated destruction shot we've ever attempted at Blizzard Cinematics. We started off with a mere 2,000 very large pieces, and by very large, I mean the smallest piece was probably the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, and then broke that down into many hundreds of thousands of pieces, all individually cut. And then on top of that, many millions or billions of particles that are streaming off those pieces in order to make that feel that large. The dust cloud for the Heaven's Gate sequence is the largest atmospheric sim we've ever attempted. It's one of the real reasons that you can feel the scale of those gates.
So there was a conceptor on the Diablo team. His name is Vic. He's an amazing artist, has a very twisted vision, and this particular character, Azmodan, was his creation.
Azmodan, to me, is the most appealing character because he fits into the world that we created, but he isn't, to me, have to walk that tightrope of a line that we had to with Leah in terms of keeping her real. We just had to keep him believable.
The challenge of creating a crab-like character, multiple eyes, a furnace mouth, right, that's gonna have talking lines, we had our work cut out for us.
The first hurdle was the fact that what was drawn in the storyboards, his proportions were completely opposite what we ended up getting from modeling in the final actual design.
He had very interesting proportions and hit a lot of interesting poses that we couldn't quite reach when we actually started modeling the character out. So when we were building this guy, we had to push him quite a bit in order to reach those.
The storyboards had long torso, long arms, short little legs, and he was doing certain actions, and then we were supposed to do those same actions with a shorter torso, shorter arms, longer legs character.
Some of the moves he had to do, like bending down, punching the floor, which is almost physically impossible. So we have to be able to do that in a convincing way and try our best to cheat sometimes.
We basically had to break and fake the rig. We had to break everything. His whole back end comes off the ground that you don't see because he physically can't do what he's actually doing. The only things touching the ground are like the first 3 legs. And so it was our job to actually make him believable moving without breaking him much.
So on so many levels, he's not a biped, he's this crab character, right? He's got this crazy mouth, he's got multiple eyes, and he's got a huge speaking part.
I was tasked with the challenge of making a character talk who didn't necessarily have lips.
We got creative with that. We realized by rotating parts of the jaw that wouldn't normally rotate, we could achieve some of the shapes that you would think would be what the lips could make.
Creating mouth shapes that would create certain sounds. It was like trying to animate the predator talking.
So we just tried the best we could with what we had. And sometimes with creative limitations, you come up with some great stuff.
I defy you.
It was a lot of late nights getting him to where we got him, and it's really exciting to see his character come to the screen. We thought long and hard about what Diablo would look like. Would Diablo be the Diablo from Diablo II? Would we re-envision it? And one of the things that Chris was really excited about was actually taking it in a different direction and really pulling out some of the feminine qualities of Leah and bringing them to Diablo.
Back in the day, I don't know that we ever wrote this down, but it's always been one of my favorite hooks, is that Diablo and his brothers, or any of these prime demons, they have to manifest in the physical world through a host. And given the fact that they all have very different kind of thematic kits, for instance, Diablo is the Lord of Terror, what he does when he possesses you is that he reaches deep and pulls out your darkest nightmares. And I had always surmised that in Diablo 1, we had this big hulking red brute. I always imagined that the person Diablo possessed to achieve that form was King Leoric's youngest son, Albrecht. And I always imagined that that was Albrecht's ultimate vision of what would scare him. And in Diablo 2, obviously the villain of Diablo evolved. Now he's got a tail and he's a little more Godzilla-like. So how interesting this time around, where Diablo is manifest again through the body of his mortal heir, that it would be female.
We really looked at the design, and there was a lot of insecurity about that in terms of like, well, could we pull it off? And would it potentially take away from some of the shape and viscera?
Talking to the dev team, like, yeah, what do you guys think about making Diablo a chick? I think a couple people stormed out of the room. It was not pretty. But over time, we just started drawing it out, and slowly but surely these designs started to come forward. Like, this is actually kind of compelling. It isn't quite as crazy as it sounds. And we wound up with what I think is a fantastic new design for the character that still sings to all the classic Diablo motifs, the big back spikes and the ram horns and such. But I love this new incarnation.
We embraced the idea that Diablo would be a female, and it was really exciting because it was a totally different direction for the IP, and felt like we pulled it off. And I hope that the audience sees that, and it's subtle. When she comes out, she still has a lot of the things that we relate to, the horns, she's got the fire coming out of her mouth. But when you watch her walk, there's just a subtle grace about it, right? And there's just a little bit of hourglass to her silhouette that I think that if people are really paying attention, they'll catch on to it.